Hey admins, how we doing out there? I'm holding this up for a reason I'll explain in a second. That's because when I put the videos out, I can edit it, and that can be one of the things right up front that we're going to be talking about in a minute. Quickly, I just want to talk about elections. We should be starting that process starting, next week as far as actually holding the elections. Again, all elections should be held at the first general membership meeting of April. And unless the lodge has done the Australian ballot, which we don't really recommend, but if you're doing that Australian ballot, you've had to have in the board vote on it, the membership vote on it, with notice for 2 weeks before the general election. That way, everybody knows about it. Also, if your lodge has had trouble with elections in the last few years, you're probably on the list that cannot have Australian ballot. So if you're considering that and not for sure, please contact me. But again, that's why in the general laws, the main reason they want the general election to happen at the general membership meeting at the given time is because that way everybody knows when it is. Especially if you're having non-contested races. If there's nobody being contested, it should happen quickly. It shouldn't be a problem, anyways. Also, make sure that if you have officers who are coming on and either need lodge leadership training or they've never been an officer before, so they have to have it, go ahead and start looking for those classes and get them trained, whether it be the online version or in person, before May 1st. They have 60 days after May 1st to get it, but let's go ahead and get it done, get it out of the way. It just makes it a whole lot easier, especially if they're uncontested and they know they're going to get that position. Excuse me. Something else that's come up again, it seems to pop up every now and again, is about chapter officers and what positions they can have in lodges when it comes to lodge offices and positions. So when we merged and became one Moose, women are full-fledged members of the lodge. And just like Moose Legion officers can be lodge officers in the lodge, chapter officers can hold a chapter office and can hold a lodge office as well. There's been a couple questions about who can volunteer, who could be chairpersons. Any chapter officer can be, that's not a requirement. What we do have to remember is when it comes to elected lodge officers, other than the administrator, no one can be paid for work. And then, of course, there's the other caveats. If they have a legitimate business, the business can get paid for their services, but not the individual specifically. And again, that's elected lodge offices only, so that is not included appointed officers. And junior past president is not an elected office; it is a position by condition. So they were automatically that position. They get it; they weren't elected. So if you have any questions with that, also please just again get a hold of me on that. It seems like even after we're still talking about the social quarters being closed and being private, not being open to the public, after we've done the two open to the public workshops at last year's convention and this year's mid-year, we're still kind of getting it wrong. I am looking at being able to send out that PowerPoint to all the lodges. Again, unfortunately, it's too big of a PowerPoint to email and put in an email, but I do have a link to a Dropbox where you can download it. I am looking at actually doing a version where I can voice over that and then send it like a YouTube video maybe. So we're trying to work on that. But again, remember, all hall rentals have to have a dispensation, even if it's to members for, say, a wedding now. Please look at that event planning guide and make sure you're doing that. Again, we've had a couple workshops. There have been lodges that are not being represented at these meetings, and therefore they're not getting the information, and that's on the lodge. We're trying to get it out. We're trying to give classes so everybody can learn what they need to learn. But we're still missing that, and we don't want lodges getting in trouble. Let's see, the last thing I want to talk about, again, we have a lot of new administrators out there, and I'm probably going to do a longer video on this separately. I had an older one, but I want to update it a little bit because a couple of things have changed. So for all lodges, they should have these 3 books so that new admins know in the separate email and video I'm going to do, I'll have the links to these because there are electronic versions. You can buy these first two. This is what I call the Holy Trinity. So let me go over them real quick. There's the General Laws book, the Officer and Committee Handbook. The difference between these two things, this is all the general laws and some of it's in legalese and a little hard to understand sometimes. This covers quite a few things and is in much more general communications, easier to understand. And then there's the admin's manual as well. This is only an electronic version. You have to go online to download it. There's no hard copy. That's why it's just a blue folder. I've just printed it off and put it in there. And as you can see, it says Officer Handbook for Moose Lodges. You should have these three things in your office available at all times. I always suggest reading a little at a time. I don't expect you to go through this book and read it all in one day and remember it all, but take a page or two and kind of absorb it. And then when you have questions about things, resort to these three things before you contact me. Try to look it up. I mean, most of these questions sometimes are very basic and easy to understand, and I get it. Sometimes they're not, but when we're contacting me, and not that I don't like answering those questions, but when they're very basic questions that can be covered in here, and I'm getting, a couple dozen phone calls a day, it makes it hard to do the regular part of my job and then cover this as well. All three of these are available online at the Moose International website. Again, I'll put them in another email. These two you can buy from the catalog sales and have them. And I always suggest if you go to an in-person class for lodge leadership, you're going to get these. But I suggest that all lodges have extra copies for their officers, especially the General Laws book, so that when the new year starts, they can get copies of this as well. Something is nice about the electronic version of these. So if you have them on your computer and it's in a PDF format, you can hit Control F and then a search box will pop up. And if you're looking for something specific, it can go right there. So let's just say you're looking up special meetings. You can type special meetings in it. It'll go to the first place where that's listed in the PDF, and it'll help you out there. So that's a very nice thing to do, to have. Again, if you have any questions on these, feel free to contact me or your territory manager. Again, I will do a bit more lengthy video for this for new admins coming very soon. And along with this, I would suggest one other thing that all lodges do have is make sure you have a list of the important dates list as well to help keep you out of trouble when it comes to keeping deadlines for a lot of paperwork. All right, I kept it to 8 minutes. You guys have a good week. Oh, and I will say this, this week I am in a Great Lakes regional meeting over in Illinois. During those meetings, if you're trying to contact me, it may take me a while to get back to you because in those meetings, I need to be able to not step out every 5 minutes for phone calls, but I will try to get in between meetings, and on breaks, I'll try to return messages. Thank you very much. Have a good week.